He had been struggling for months. The small human settlement on the outskirts of the neutral star system barely managed to stay alive with limited supplies and an overworked crew. Food shortages had become a constant worry, and the latest shipment from the Galactic Council was delayed indefinitely. The humans had grown thin, morale was low, and whispers of mutiny began to surface. That's when Elias decided to hire someone unusual. The advertisement had been simple. Cook wanted, you must be capable of feeding a large crew. Experience with unusual ingredients, A+. He had not expected anyone to answer, let alone the answer that arrived 3 days later. She was enormous. Standing at over 2 meters, her frame dwarfed most humans. Her skin shimmered faintly under the ship's lights, a soft pale green with a texture that reminded Elias of polished stone. Her eyes were the most striking golden, like molten metal, and intelligent. She introduced herself as Leora. Despite her intimidating size, her smile was warm, almost maternal, and she carried herself with a surprising gentleness. Elias had hesitated at first, unsure if she would fit in with the human crew, but when she offered a small demonstration, transforming a pile of bland rations into a feast of steaming soups, roasted protein, and delicate pastries, all with ingredients they had on hand, he realized she was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her first week was simple. Leora cooked tirelessly, feeding the crew and gradually earning their trust. They were wary at first, some hiding behind polite nods. But food has a language everyone understands, and soon laughter filled the galley again. Yet Elias noticed something strange. Leora often lingered near the control deck, watching the stars drift past, as if she were listening to something humans could not. Are you sensing something? He asked one evening as she quietly observed the navigation screen. She tilted her head. The stars speak, she said softly. They tell stories. Some are warnings, some are promises. Elias laughed nervously. I think you mean they remind you of your homeworld. Leora smiled but didn't answer. There was a depth to her quiet, a hidden layer Elias could not yet touch. He thought about her as he went to sleep that night, wondering how such a creature ended up in a small human settlement so far from the galactic hubs. The real shock came 7 days after she arrived. That humans had just finished a long, exhausting repair shift on the ship's engines. Spirits were low again. Elias watched from the corridor as Leora rolled in her food cart, the smell of fresh bread and roasted vegetables filling the metallic hulls. But something was different. She looked around at the weary humans. And then, with a small gesture, she began speaking in a language no human had ever heard. The words resonated in the air, vibrating softly against the hull. At first, Elias thought it was a song, but then he saw the food on the table began to shimmer, transforming in ways that defied logic. Bread turned into energy-rich loaves. Fruits expanded into enough for everyone to have seconds, and protein rations became perfectly cooked meat, tender and flavorful. Even water purified itself, glowing faintly as it filled the cups. The humans stared in stunned silence. One of the younger crew members muttered, "It's magic." Elias stepped closer, awe written across his face. How are you doing this?" Leora looked up at him, goldeneyes.com. "I am feeding them not just with nutrients, but with energy. Your bodies need more than just food. They need balance, strength, and courage. I give it to them." It was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. That humans, once thin and exhausted, began to regain color in their cheeks. Strength returned to their limbs, and a spark ignited in their eyes. It was as if Leora's cooking had awakened something dormant in their bodies. "What do you mean, balance?" Elias asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. "The universe is more than matter and energy," she said. "It flows in patterns you can barely sense. Your species has a spark, a resilience, but it is hidden beneath doubt and fatigue. I simply bring it out." The implications hit Elias slowly. This wasn't just cooking. Leora had the ability to enhance humans, to unlock latent potential. She could make them stronger, faster, and more alert. For a small, struggling settlement, this was nothing short of a miracle. Word spread quickly among the crew. At first, they were skeptical, but after the second meal, even the most cynical began to notice changes. Injuries healed faster, fatigue faded almost overnight, and a newfound energy pulsed through the group. They could work longer, think clearer, and even anticipate problems before they arose. Elias watched them, a mixture of pride and fear rising in his chest. 1 week ago he had merely wanted someone to cook meals. Now, he realized, he had stumbled upon a being who could change the fate of humanity itself. But with that revelation came worry. Leora was powerful, and her intentions, though seemingly kind, were unknown. Elias had to understand her before becoming dependent on her gifts. He approached her the following night, as the ship drifted silently past a nebula that glowed like molten glass in the darkness of space. "Leora, why are you here? Why help us?" She paused, her eyes reflecting the colors of the nebula. "I was sent," she said simply. "Sent? By whom?" She shook her head, almost sadly. "I do not remember. Only that the ones who sent me believed in the potential of your kind. They thought humans could rise to greatness, but needed guidance, nourishment, and trust." Elias swallowed. "And what if we fail?" Her gaze held his. Then you will try again. Humans have a stubbornness that is rare. Even if you fall, you will learn. That is why I am here to help you take the first step. The week continued with astonishing results. Under Leora's care, the settlement became efficient. Crops that had failed under artificial light thrived. Machines that sputtered to life with difficulty now worked with precision. Humans, once weary and doubting, now held their heads high, ready to face challenges that would have seemed impossible days before. Elias noticed something else, something unexpected. Leora had begun learning from the humans as well. She asked questions about their customs, laughed at their jokes, and even attempted to replicate their clumsy attempts at cooking simple meals without the energy enhancements. Her enormous hands, delicate in ways that contradicted their size, struggled with chopping vegetables, and her eyes would light up with pride when she succeeded. It was a small, humanizing touch in a creature that had already amazed him beyond measure. By the end of the second week, the settlement was thriving. Communication with nearby colonies, once patchy, improved. Repairs that should have taken months were completed in days. Humans moved with confidence, their skills amplified subtly but noticeably. One evening, Elias found himself alone in the galley. Leora was perched on a stool that seemed far too small for her, quietly stirring a pot of stew. The smell was heavenly, richer than anything he had known before. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. She looked up, golden eyes reflecting the dim lights. "No, you have changed," she said. "I only helped bring out what was already inside." Elias paused, realizing the truth in her words. Humans had always been capable of great things. They simply needed a spark, someone to remind them of what they could be. Leora had provided that spark, not with force, but with care and nourishment, guiding them gently toward their own potential. "Do you ever get lonely?" he asked after a moment. She tilted her head. "Sometimes, but I have purpose. That is enough for me." And indeed it seemed that purpose radiated outward, touching everyone around her. She was no ordinary cook. She was a guardian of potential, a silent teacher, and a catalyst for growth. The humans had been struggling, on the brink of collapse, but in just 2 weeks, under her guidance, they had found strength, courage, and hope. Elias realized something crucial that night. Humanity had often thought itself insignificant in the vast galaxy, just one small species among countless others. Yet in Leora's presence, he could see their true potential. There was something resilient in humans, something stubborn and brave, something that could rise against impossible odds. And for the first time in a long while, he felt confident. No matter the challenges that awaited them, no matter the threats from beyond the stars, humanity had a chance. A chance not because of weapons, not because of technology, but because of its spirit and the mysterious, caring giant who had come to awaken it. A week after Leora's arrival, Elias had understood that this was no ordinary week. It had been a turning point, a moment where everything changed. The humans had not only survived, they had grown, learned, and begun to rise. And it had all started with a simple act. A cook who looked after them, who fed them not just with food, but with belief, energy, and care. Elias watched her one last time before retiring for the night. Leora hummed softly, moving among the crew, checking, nurturing, and teaching without words. He marveled at her, this giant alien woman who had shocked him beyond measure. And yet, in a strange, comforting way, everything about it felt natural. Humanity, he realized, had found an unexpected alloyant, perhaps even a friend, on the quiet of the night. Under the endless swirl of stars, he knew one thing with certainty. The universe would never look the same again, not after a week with Leora.